The 18-day-long monsoon session of Parliament begins with COVID-19 protocols in place. Over 4,000 people, including MPs, tested for COVID-19, of which 25 MPs are believed to have tested positive. Most operations, including attendance of MPs, have been digitized. For the first time in history, the Rajya Sabha and the Lok Sabha sittings are being held in 2 shifts without any break. Prime Minister Narendra Modi appeals to all political parties to stand in solidarity with soldiers guarding India's borders. Says the message needs to be sent out very strongly that the nation is united for its forces.
सेना के जवानों के पीछे देश खड़ा है। संसद और सांसद सदस्यों के माध्यम से खड़ा है। पूरा सदन एक स्वर से देश के वीर जवानों के पीछे खड़ा है। ये बहुत ही मजबूत संदेश भी ये सदन देगा, सभी माननीय सदस्य देंगे, ऐसा मेरा पूरा विश्वास है।
Not running away from questions, says Defence Minister Rajnath Singh as Parliament session kicks off without the question hour. Claims leaders of most parties agree with the decision due to the pandemic. Congress accused the government of trying to strangulate democracy.
असाधारण परिस्थितियों में यह संसद की कार्रवाई इस बार हम लोगों को करनी पड़ रही है। इसमें आप सभी का सहयोग चाहिए, क्योंकि केवल 4 घंटे के लिए ही सदन चलेगा। इसलिए मैंने अनुरोध किया था कि क्वेश्चन आवर इसमें न हो, बल्कि आधे घंटे का एक 0 आवर हो कि यदि किसी को कोई प्रश्न पूछना है, अपनी किसी आशंका का समाधान करना है, तो उस आधे घंटे में वह कर सकते हैं। अधिकांश राजनीतिक पार्टी के जो नेतागण हैं, उन्होंने अध्यक्ष महोदय अपनी सहमति दी थी और उससे आपको अवगत कराया गया था। तत्पश्चात आपने यह फैसला किया था कि जो संसद की कार्रवाई चलेगी उसमें क्वेश्चन आवर नहीं होगा।
राजनाथ सिंह जी ने कहा कि अनस्टार्ट क्वेश्चन, सर हर दिन 230 अनस्टार्ट क्वेश्चन, साथ में अगर आप चाहे तो 25 और जोड़ सकते हैं, तो 230 प्लस 25 जोड़ सकते हैं अनस्टार्ट। लेकिन स्टार्ट में 20 क्वेश्चन आप नहीं ला सकते। ये कैसे समझाओगे आप? और किसी को इन्फॉर्म करना मतलब कंफर्म करना नहीं। आपने जरूर इन्फॉर्म किया है।
Government seeks the Parliament's nod to spend an additional 1.7 lakh crore rupees this financial year in the supplementary demand for grants. Large chunk of this will go to Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme. The government also seeks Parliament's approval to infuse 20,000 crore rupees in PSU banks. The move is aimed at helping lenders mitigate the expected surge in bad loans. The government introduces 3 key agriculture-related bills in Parliament to replace ordinances. The bills include the Farmers' Agreement on Price Assurance and Farmer Services Bill, the Farmers' Produce Trade and Commerce Bill, and the Essential Commodities Amendment Bill as well. Health Minister Harshvardhan briefs the Parliament for the first time on COVID-19, says the government's endeavour to manage the coronavirus pandemic has been able to limit cases to 3,328 per million and deaths at 55 per million, adds that this rate is among the lowest in the world.
Government and whole of society approach, India has been able to limit its cases and deaths per million to 3,328 cases per million and 55 deaths per million population respectively, which is one of the lowest in the world as compared to similarly affected countries.
The Modi government tells Parliament that it does not have any data on migrant deaths due to the lockdown. Also says there is no data on job losses. This even as government admits that 1 crore migrants have returned home, with over 3 million returning to Uttar Pradesh alone. Close to 40,000 crore rupees withdrawn from EPF accounts during the lockdown period between the 25th of March and the 31st of August. Maharashtra sees the highest withdrawal at over 7,800 crore rupees. Hello and welcome. You're watching Political Exchange. The monsoon session of Parliament has begun amidst a COVID-19 pandemic. A lot of changes in the way the Parliament is functioning this time around. All MPs have been tested for COVID-19 and we believe that at least 25 of them have tested positive, which means they will not be attending the House anymore. The Parliament timings have been cut short every day. The Parliament, Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha will work for 4 hours each. Staggered timings, no Saturdays and Sundays break, 18 days of work. We can also tell our viewers that 47 items are on the government's agenda, and this includes 11 ordinances as well. The opposition is very angry at the question hour being scrapped. They have a lot of questions from the government. They are demanding a discussion on India and China, LEC tensions as well. They are questioning the agricultural ordinances that have been introduced by the government. But first, let's go across to Rituparna Bhuyan, who tells us what has changed in the Parliament session this time around.
COVID or not, democracy has to go on. And over the next 18 days, we will see lawmakers of India adopt and adapt to the new normal brought about by the COVID-19 pandemic in the monsoon session of the Parliament. Let me take you through the new SOPs which have been brought about. Firstly, there will be 18 sittings, and in those 18 sittings, you'll also see MPs conducting business in both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, even on Saturdays and Sundays. You'll also see Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha being given 4 hours each during all these 18 days where Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha will be conducting business. For example, Rajya Sabha will be conducting business between 9 a.m. and 1 p.m., while Lok Sabha will be conducting business between 3 p.m. and 7 p.m. The kind of SOPs that has been fixed for this includes staggered sitting for all the MPs, which means that when Lok Sabha session is on, then not all the Lok Sabha MPs will be allowed to sit in the Lok Sabha chamber. The MPs who are not able to sit because of the social distancing norms will be made to sit in the Rajya Sabha chamber, as well as the visitors gallery and also the central hall of the Parliament. You will also see that there are polycarbonate sheets between the seats where the MPs will be sitting. No visitors will be allowed during this entire course of the monsoon session. In addition to that, there have been some controversial decisions which have also been taken, and we saw that today when Parliament convened. For example, the question hour has been suspended, and we saw opposition parties protesting against that. Written answers will be given, but then again, only unstarred answers will be tabled in the House. Moreover, MPs have been given protection kits. There are these items which are there in each protection kit. For example, you have face shields, you have gloves, you have sanitizers, you have a touch-free hook. And not only that, even tea bags have been provided to the MPs to enhance their immunity. Let me take you through the legislative agenda now. Remember that this is a 18-sitting Parliament session, and there are 45 bills which have been slotted, and of that, 11 bills are basically to replace the ordinances. What we will see in terms of the important bills is the IBC Amendment Bill, the Banking Regulation Bill, the Bilateral Netting of Financial Contracts Bill. These are some of the important bills. In addition to that, you'll be seeing the Factoring Regulation Bill, the Companies Amendment Bill, the Industrial Relations Code Bill. This is part of the Labour Code reforms which the government has initiated. The Code on Social Security is again part of the labour reforms. The Occupational and Safety, Health and Working Conditions Code. One more important labour-related, related bill which will be reduced, and we will see the aircraft amendment bill also being taken up in this session. So net, a new normal as far as both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha are concerned. Both will have only 4 hours to conduct business. But as I said in the beginning, democracy has to go on. Lawmakers will be sitting for the next 18 days in Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha to take forward the legislative agenda. With that, it's back to you.
Thank you so much, Rituparna, for joining us, telling us what these 18 days of Parliament of the monsoon session have in store for us. And in terms of legislations, 11 ordinances have to be converted into bills, and at least 3 or 4 of them are contentious ones which the opposition is opposing. Let's introduce all our guests. We're joined by Dr. Jay Kumar, Member of Parliament of the Congress Party. He's MP in the Lok Sabha. We're also joined by NCP's Majid Memon and Gopal Krishna Agarwal of the BJP. Mr. Jay Kumar, if I can begin with you. As a parliamentarian, as you visited the House today, were you satisfied with the kind of arrangements that have been made, especially reduction of 0 hour to 30 minutes and scrapping of the question hour for the monsoon session?
Well, I am not at all... Okay. Hello? Hello?
Yes, Mr. Jay Kumar, we can hear you.
No video. Yeah. Well, I am not at all satisfied.
Mr. Jay Kumar, we're asking you today.
Yeah?
Go ahead, sir.
I am not at all satisfied with the way the proceedings are carried out in the Parliament.
All right, I believe... All right, we're having some bit of problem in connecting to Mr. Jay Kumar. We'll come to that in just a bit. But, Gopal, I'd like to ask you about these numbers that were shared on the floor of the House by the government. 1 crore migrants have returned home in the last few months. Almost 40,000 crore rupees withdrawn from EPF accounts. Doesn't this give a picture of the extent of job losses in the country in the last 4 months and the crisis that we have at our hands? Gopal?
No, the thing is, Parikshit, the issue is complicated. There was a problem of the migrant laborers, and they have gone, and therefore Manrega fund were given to them and to provide funds during this pandemic at their through the panchayat at their native place. Now maximum are coming up. This is the way. Because of this, the government is focusing on revival of the economic activity. Unless the economic activity across different segments starts, migrant labor will not return. So this is a cyclical issue. This is one thing leading to another thing. Is the first and foremost thing now on the agenda of our government is to revive the economic activities at different places, and therefore we are even requesting various state government not to go for arbitrary lockdowns now. If they are going for weekend lockdown, some states are going on for other different lockdowns also. So government is focusing on revival of economic activity. Once the economic activity revives, industries revive, then only these migration laborers will come back. And we have seen that even UP figure has been given that almost 30% of the migrant labor have come back. So this will come out. We are seeing the revival of economic activity. This is part of the crisis that the COVID has seen at present. So I think with further strengthening of the demand, which the government is trying to push through fund infusion in the rural areas, in different sectors, in the Rediwala, Patriwala, provide them funds, even MSME are being given loans. All these things, facilities are being given. Even agriculture sector is getting lot of funds to the tune of 1.5 crore.
All right.
So total 21 lakh crore is sufficiently taking care of all segments.
All right, Mr. Jay Kumar, let me bring you back in. Sorry for the disturbance at that time. Over here, we have the BJP spokesperson saying that 21 lakh crores have been infused and the government is taking all measures to bring economic activity on track. make sure migrant workers return. But don't you think the economic situation in the country, the COVID-19 pandemic, merits a larger discussion? The opposition today voiced its concern over scrapping of the question hour. Is this an issue that you are going to take up with the government, that do not scrap the question hour?
Yes, we have already made a big noise in the House seeking permission to raise questions, because the questioning is the only process through which we are making the bureaucracy to work. Governments wants to save them. This is our point. Government wants to save them unnecessarily. This is the only process where the democratic process is being exercised properly. Why there is opposition? The opposition duty is to check the government's functioning, and this is the first thing. Every day in the morning when we go on a normal days, we have the question hour, and later only the rest of the things have come. Why we can't say an hour for that? Definitely the economic activities, the pandemic and the impact of COVID, etc. We will discuss only if such an opportunity is given. For example, what we discussed today, nothing on economy we discussed, nothing on MP lad fund we discussed, nothing on China and the line of control we discussed, nothing on employment we discussed, nothing on the estranged workers or the migrated workers we discussed. No useful discussion has taken place. They are bringing some bills. What the functioning of these bills? What for these bills? These bills are to make the state governments a Tahsildar office. I am using the word, all these bills, majority of them are to take away the role of the state government to the center and to make the state government a Tahsildar office where the central government will behave like a collector. What the Tahsildar will do, anything the central government will say, they will have to do it A to Z. They cannot deviate here and there. Exactly. You
Mr.
take either it is an agricultural bill, either it is the finance bill, either,
Okay. Mr. Jayakumar, I'm going to come to you. I'm going to introduce NCP's Majid Memon as well. Mr. Memon, thank you very much for joining us. We are seeing farmer protests in the country regarding the 3 agricultural ordinances, especially the one which allows the sale and purchase of crops outside state APMCs. I think the farmers are saying, and certain members of the opposition are saying, that this is something that will benefit traders and not farmers. Is the NCP also going to raise this issue in the House?
Well, NCP is trying to project the deficiencies in this session. Once, of course, we must say that the managers who have organized the functioning of the houses, both the houses during this pandemic, of course, they have taken pains to ensure that the health problem is taken care of, and this pandemic doesn't cause any problem, and business should be conducted. But as we have been saying from day one, that without question hour, the proceedings in the parliament is soulless. It is without soul. There is no point. If your government wants to do its, establishment wants to do its business by getting through bills and ordinances passed, you see, is not the true spirit in which the parliament is expected to work. Now, we know that there has been a gap between the previous session and this session, and quite a few numbers of ordinances have been promulgated during this intervening period. And since if it would be over 6 months, they would lapse. So it is the urgency for the business of the government to ensure that those ordinances turn into law by approval from the houses. Therefore, that is their first priority. But at any case, other bills, as we have been seeing, that there are a number of bills lined up. But those passage of those bills cannot be by mere strength of numbers. We need all those bills, some of them, which are of great public importance, which are of importance from the point of view of the poorer section of the Indian society. Well, they need to be thoroughly discussed. But unfortunately, that has not been happening. You see, once the establishment of the ruling party has sufficient numbers in both the houses, which of course the NDA government is going to have in Rajya Sabha also. So there is no deterrent. There is no check. We in Rajya Sabha tried our best during the past couple of sessions that, well, important issues need to be thoroughly discussed. Some need to be even sent to select committee for the
Mr. Memon, what about India and China?
About China and about pandemic.
What about India and China? There is an LSE standoff going on. The government, we believe, is going to hold a meeting tomorrow around 5 p.m. where opposition leaders, there'll be separate briefings for members, for leaders of the Rajya Sabha, separate briefings for leaders of the Lok Sabha. Do you think this is a satisfactory way of going forward?
No. Why? See, why do we meet privately? Why we not discuss the China issue in Parliament so that the nation would know about it and then the proceedings would carry? You see, we want to know for a clear, Prime Minister to make a clear statement that not an inch of our territory is captured by China. That clarification is needed on that. And plus, what preventive steps are we taking to ensure that we see our territorial integrity, our sovereignty has remained intact, and our neighbors who may have an eye on it, you see, are to be properly responded by us. So that this is an issue which is of great national importance. Every Indian citizen is concerned with the Indian land, and therefore such matters can't be privately discussed in a meeting with the opposition leaders. These matters need to be discussed in Parliament. And in Parliament, the government must come forward with satisfactory answer to convince every one of 138 crore people.
All right, Mr. Jayakumar, to get you in at this point, there have been inter-party meetings when it comes to the India-China issue as well. Are you also going to demand a statement from the Prime Minister as to whether status quo ante has been restored at the LAC as existed before the 5th of May 2020? Would you also want a discussion on the floor of the House?
Yes, we asked for it already. We asked for it. There is no purpose why we should not, as the gentleman spoke ahead of me. As he said, why these things should be discussed secretly in some place. Why not in the open place in the Parliament and let the country know that what is the situation. The Prime Minister speak one thing behind the camera and one thing before the camera. He says that the country is behind our Jawans. Who said we are not behind our Jawans? Is it a statement needed? These kind of cosmetic statements will not help. These kind of cosmetic statements the Prime Minister should avoid. They are all useless statements. At all point of time, the countrymen and the country people, the nation stands behind our Jawan. He need not have to say this. What we did to push back the Chinese, they have come into the country for more than 40 kilometers, people say in some places. And some places they have intruded to an extent of 10 kilometers. And what are those situations the Prime Minister has to say? And he is only saying, we will not allow even an inch of the land in the other fellow to occupy it. We can say sitting in Delhi, all those things. What is happening actually on the border is to be said to the people. We are behind the Prime Minister in this matter. Why is he feeling shy? Congress party is strongly standing behind the government.
Okay, let me take that question.
In taking on the China, in taking on our land.
All right.
We are not away from it. When we support the government on this issue, come out and discuss.
I will take that question to the BJP spokesperson now.
In the Parliament, we will take a concrete decision on it.
All right, Gopal Agarwal, just to get you in, we've got members of the NCP, members, Mr. Jayakumar, both were very upset with the fact that question hour has been scrapped. They're asking, why do we need to have private meetings on India and China? Why can't we have statements from the External Affairs Minister, Defense Minister and the Prime Minister on the floor in the House and have a complete discussion?
There are 2-3 points, very important point raised by both members of the Parliament. One thing I would like to tell you, the Defense Minister has said that this was well discussed and agreed by everybody that there will be no question hours and only a 30-minute zero hour where everybody can ask question, one thing. So it was a consensus decision which was conveyed, one thing. Second was that everybody can ask questions. They will be answered in writing and they will be put on the floor of the House and will be given to the individual members, those who have asked the question. So that should now settle one part of it. Everybody has accepted it. There is a different situation under which COVID situation the parliament is functioning, and the time limit and everything has to be followed. Therefore, this has been done. Second point I would like to tell about Mr. Menon was, he said that why parliament is only talking about bills. What is the main function of the legislature? It is passing of the bills. When you pass a bill, when you put a bill on the parliament, it is well discussed thread and bare with every aspect. You can ask every question, you can discuss on everything, you can give your comment, and then finally, ultimately in a democracy, voting is an important way of taking decision. So if you question the basic function of the parliament, that why bills are being put into parliament, I can't understand what is that way of thinking, because in democracy, this is the only way through which legislation can function. The third important point are, there are certain issues about China, etc., have been raised. What I would like to just question is, you will not accept what the Prime Minister is saying. You will not accept what the Defense Minister is saying. You will not accept what the Foreign Minister is saying, what our Army and Air Force and Combined Defense Services chief is saying, and then you will quote some social media or some Chinese media's report and then question the government. So this is not the way. And at the point when there is a serious problem on the border, everything cannot be in a public domain. What will be India's strategy? You cannot discuss in the live debate. Yeah. So I think they have a chance to question the Prime Minister and the other people.
All right, so that was the BJP view, that everything that's happening at the border, everything in terms of our national security cannot be discussed openly, and we are open to having discussions in private, and we will brief opposition leaders. That is the message coming from the BJP. Let's see how this parliament session progresses. 18 days of work, 47 items to be legislated upon. Mr. Jayakumar of the Congress, Marjin Memon of the NCP, Gopal Krishna Agarwal of the BJP, thank you very much for joining us on Political Exchange.